If somebody asks me which flagship smartphone actually one-ups the iPhone 17 Pro Max and does something better, I would not say the OnePlus 13. I wouldn't say the S25 Ultra, not the Google Pixel 10 Pro XL. I would say the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max. So Xiaomi has been openly copying the iPhone as an Android company for years now. And the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max has the same basic aesthetic as the iPhone, the same basic giant camera bump on the back, the same basic rails and feel. The software is definitely iOS inspired, but when you actually use the phone, it still feels like a different phone. Copying Apple's iPhone is actually not a bad idea. And they didn't just change the iPhone 17 Pro Max, they changed their entire lineup. So now there's a Xiaomi 17, a Xiaomi 17 Pro, and a Xiaomi 17 Pro Max. And it kind of sounds like a knockoff, and if you ask me, it technically still is a knockoff, but it's a high quality knockoff that has its own features, that has its own feel. So much so that while I would say it's a knockoff, at the same time it's not a knockoff, because it really is Xiaomi's phone. It still is a different phone. It's not like those random fake iPhones you'll find on Amazon or Temu or something that just is terrible, does not match the iPhone's quality. No, the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max actually feels like an iPhone, but doesn't feel like an iPhone. It's actually lighter than an iPhone 17 Pro Max, which is surprising because there's actually more to it. And it just comes to show that these Chinese companies are really giving these US companies a run for their money. Thankfully for Apple, this thing is not technically sold inside the US and you'd have to get it from a third-party buyer. That means it doesn't really run well in the US, so you can't use it for your daily driver, even if you bought it from a third-party seller. But the software is still enough to make you understand what Xiaomi software is all about, and Xiaomi is doing well. It runs on the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, which, by the way, I've heard that Samsung is ditching Snapdragon again this year and going back to Qualcomm, so let's see what happens about that. But getting back to iPhone, they're so similar, I'm actually saying iPhone instead of Xiaomi. I'm not used to saying the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, I'm used to saying the iPhone 17 Pro Max, iPhone 16 Pro Max. Oh my gosh, this is so weird, but at the same time, I don't really mind it. So the biggest spec about this phone is the battery, because the battery is definitely bigger than the S25 Ultras. It's definitely bigger than the OnePlus 13s, which is actually the phone in the US with the biggest battery, like the biggest normal flagship phone. It has a 6,000 milliamp hour. The Samsung has a 5,000 milliamp hour, and it definitely has more battery than any iPhone, because this phone has a 7,500 milliamp hour battery, which, if you ask me, is crazy, especially considering it somehow came out lighter than the iPhone 17 Pro Max. On top of that, it has 1,000 watt charging and 22.5 watt reverse charging. So when it comes to battery, this thing just steps on the iPhone, tramples the iPhone, runs on the iPhone. Yeah. The iPhone 17 Pro Max has triple 48 megapixel cameras, but this phone has dual 50 megapixel cameras. Once again, it's not really the megapixels that matter, it depends on the quality, and the quality is definitely not that far off from the iPhones. And the punch hole in the front is smaller because there's no dynamic island, because instead of focusing on Face ID or like face recognition, it diverts some of that security to a ultrasonic fingerprint sensor under the screen, which Apple still refuses to put in their phones. The battery was the biggest spec, but the biggest thing about this phone in general is the rear display on the back. Now, Xiaomi's in the past have had rear displays, but this is actually a high quality rear display that really only gets messed up by the rear cameras, because this display is on the camera bump, so the cameras are kind of blocking it, kind of what it's like for the Galaxy Z Flip 7. This back display can be a camera preview, so that means you can take crazy high quality selfies without having to use that usually not so good selfie camera on the front. And that also means the display is customizable. So there's this whole designated area in the settings app that's designated for personalizing this second display. You can have these random clock faces, this Apple Watch clock face, which is just a ripoff if you ask me. You can put you can have a cartoon clock face, other clock faces. You can put anime stuff on your second display. You can have these complex watch faces, a lot of stuff. So you can even play games on this thing, which I don't really know why people would do that when you still have the main display on the front. I don't know. But overall, this phone is definitely better than the iPhone in a lot of ways. The software and the operating system, like I said, take some subtle hints from the iOS things. Obviously, they didn't come with liquid glass because that'd be total copying. But stuff like the drop-down menu, it looks a lot like the iPhone. But when you're actually using it, it still feels like a Xiaomi. The weather app is also very similar to iOS's weather app. But it's still Xiaomi's phone. It still has a different feel. It's like another version of the iPhone made by Xiaomi. Let's see where Xiaomi's gonna bring this 17 Pro Max. I can't wait for the iPhone. I can't wait for the Xiaomi 18 Pro Max to see what they're gonna do. And I wonder if iPhone, for once, is gonna copy Xiaomi and add a rear display on their phones. Because the way Xiaomi did their rear display, it feels like it's what Apple would do with theirs. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.